Here's the substance. The substance is this, is that the First Amendment protects religious belief, period, end of story. But there's an addendum to that, which is supported in case law, by the way, is that those beliefs have to be sincere. They can't be fake beliefs. They have to be sincerely held. That's the expression that's used. They have to be sincerely held religious beliefs in order to qualify for First Amendment protection. So whereas courts are not willing to go into whether a belief is valid, the validity of a belief, whether it's true or false, the validity of a belief cannot be examined by a court or really anybody else. Cannot be examined. But sincerity of belief can be. Okay? So this is a huge distinction, because if you can show, or if you can plead, because we're just in the pleading stage now, right? If you plead, this is the amended complaint. If you plead that the LDS Church does not sincerely hold the religious beliefs in these three areas, First Vision, Book of Mormon, Book of Abraham, doesn't sincerely believe the dominant narrative that they've been teaching, then it's not entitled to First Amendment protections. Now, all of a sudden, you're outside the First Amendment and you don't get to invoke the Church Autonomy Doctrine because now you don't believe it. So that's one thing, okay? The second thing is this. The Church Autonomy Doctrine basically says that once you're a member of a church, you've agreed to become a member of a church, then you're subject to whatever rules and regulations and government that that church has, okay? Because you joined. But the amended complaint says not only are these beliefs of the dominant narrative not sincerely held by the LDS Church and its leaders, that constitutes a fraud, and not just a fraud on the members. And by the way, it's a fraud as alleged, because not only are they sort of being disingenuous and making misrepresentations about what happened in these three areas, they also are omitting information that's relevant for a person making this decision about whether, because what they're saying is that the church engaged in fraud because they don't sincerely hold these religious beliefs. They're giving, you know, the whitewashed, correlated version of history that we all know and love so well and that we taught on our missions. And that, for me, I learned from the missionaries back in 1978. So we get this omitted, whitewashed version of the church, which then induces a person such as myself or Gaddy is the plaintiff here, to join the church. Having said that, so they're not a member. I may not be an expert on First Amendment religion law, but I am kind of an expert on the church hiding stuff. I've done over 200 podcasts over at Radio Free Mormon, and primarily my bread and butter has been researching and pointing out ways and places where the LDS Church has hidden things from its members and even prevaricated. This talk is Boyd K. Packer as an apostle. He's a representative of the church. He's talking to the CES employees, and that means the BYU professors. It means the seminary instructors and directors. It means the institute, all the church teachers. And in this talk, what he does is he says this. He says, I'm an apostle. There are two different kinds of facts about the LDS Church. There are good facts that are faith-promoting facts, and there are other facts about the LDS Church that are not faith-promoting. And I, as an apostle, I teach only the faith-promoting side of it. I do not talk about those facts that are not faith-promoting. And not only do I do it as an apostle, I'm telling you, each and every one of you, every teacher in this church, whether at college or seminary, all you teachers, you have to do this too. You have to teach only the faith-promoting side of church history, and you do not talk about the unfaith-promoting side of church history. And then he goes on to threaten them. And he says, if you teach this negative side of it, and you don't publish about it either, You don't write about it. You don't publish it. And it doesn't make any difference if somebody else has already published on it before. You don't quote from them to talk about these negative things, basically because, well, not basically, he says it. What was originally published could go out of publication. And we want it to die there. And you don't want to spread disease germs by keeping it alive, by quoting it in a subsequent publication of your own. So he says this, then he threatens them with their employment. He basically says, if you do this against my advice and talk about the negative side of church history, you are probably going to be looking for a new job, and you're definitely going to be spending an eternity in a place that's a lot hotter than the celestial kingdom. So he threatens them not only with their temporal income, he threatens them with their eternal salvation. Okay, so this is why this talk it's everything. This is not having to connect dots, okay, and try and prove a case. This is a representative of the church saying what he's doing and why he's doing it, and telling all the other church teachers that they need to do the same thing. And then it was published in BYU Studies. It's a publication where you can actually go to what it is that he said and quote his exact words, and you can show it. That's why it's been several pages on that, because that's your exhibit A. That's your smoking gun, I think, as far as my studies show me. And then I would follow it up. I would follow it up with what Elder Oaks said 4 years later to the same audience. Once again, try and get K on. The one thought is this, is that you've got Elder Boyd K. Packer saying that in 1981. Then you've got Elder Oaks saying the exact same thing in 1985. The interesting thing about Elder Oaks is now he's first counselor in the first presidency and next in line to the throne. And what he says in his CES talk, which is called Reading Church History, see if this sounds familiar. Quote, "The fact that something is true is not always a justification for communicating it." Does that sound like a familiar concept? And he also says in another place, by the same token, some things that are true are not edifying or appropriate to communicate. That sounds kind of damning. I would have included this in the briefing if I had been doing it. And then he says this is the real money quote. If those aren't good enough, Elder Oaks says this, 1985, balance is telling both sides. Well, thank you for telling us that. But balance is telling both sides. This is not the mission of official church literature. Wow. That's quite an admission that they're only showing half the side, that he knows that it exists, but that's not our mission of official church literature. We're not telling you both sides. We're only telling you the one side and the one side that favors us. And then I would bookend it, and this is the last point I want to make here, right? I would bookend it because you've got 1981 and 1985. So that's quite a while ago. I mean, it's almost 40 years ago, and then 35 years ago. But bring it up to 2017. So this is the other bookend, which is Elder Ballard, November of 2017, doing the face-to-face devotional for the young adults, right? And he says this: we would have to say, right after mentioning Boyd K. Packer and Dehlin Oaks, right? Then you quote him as saying, Ballard, 2017, we would have to say, as two apostles who have covered the world and know the history of the church and know the integrity of the first presidency and the quorum of the 12 from the beginning, there has been no attempt on the part of the church leaders to try to hide anything from anybody. That's the other bookend. Because now you've got church leaders just in my lifetime saying, we're hiding stuff from you. And here's why. To Elder Ballard now saying, no, we've never hidden anything from the beginning. None of the apostles or leaders of the church have ever hidden anything from anybody. So that's a stark contrast. And it'd be a wonderful framework for everything else to be fit in. Because once you start with that and give the framework, now all of a sudden, all these other places where the church is being dodgy and hiding stuff, now you're looking at it and going, this looks like more than a coincidence. It looks like they know what they're doing, and all they're doing is following exactly what it was that Elder Packer and Elder Oaks said their goal was, which is we're not going to share both sides of it. We're going to keep the faith demoting or faith destroying part of it away from you. So, and once again, circling this back in, this all gets into the sincerity of their religious beliefs, when they're presenting only one side of the issue? Can they say that they're sincerely holding this belief when they know the other side that counters the side they're presenting, and they're not revealing it to you? Okay, that's the whole issue, I think. And are they using that as a deception to induce a fraud, to induce people to join the church and ultimately to pay tithing, which is, of course, the big money issue? That is basically all I had to say right now.